big question on everyone's minds today: is the new Breaking Bad show Pluribus any good? No, it's absolutely terrible. Thank you for watching. Now, I know what you're going to say. Oh my God, it's the guy that puts a Breaking Bad reference in every video. Of course he's going to shill the show. Yes, I am. I'm going to unapologetically shill this show and talk about how good it is, because I feel like at the minute, there is nothing else on streaming services like it. Now, the main problem I have with Pluribus that I really, really hate is the fact that it's on Apple TV. The thing is, like Netflix, for example, right? There is so much slop on Netflix, but eventually, if you wade through the slop, you'll find something that you could watch in the background when you're on your phone, like some kind of 7 out of 10 TV series or film. Now, Apple TV, I like to equate to the PS5 library. There's nothing. Okay, there are some good shows, like for example, Dark Matter, and also a pretty good UK crime drama series called Slow Horses. I know when I just said the words crime drama, you rolled your eyes, especially being set in the UK, because they seem to produce more UK crime dramas in the UK than we get animes every year. But the reason why Slow Horses is so good is because it has Gary Oldman, and you can tell he just doesn't care in any scene he's in.
I turned them down. I didn't want to do it.
Oh, well, we just sorted out your farewell present. Yeah. What am I supposed to do with this now?
Apple TV do make some decent shows. The only problem is they release a show every 3 to 5 years. That's usually because they're too busy making a new phone that has basically nothing better than the previous phone. Maybe it's half 0.1 centimeters bigger. And then it doesn't matter anyway because they'll release like a Max Pro version a week later anyway. But that being said, if you can get over the hurdle of it being on Apple TV, there is definitely no other way to watch it. That's basically the biggest hurdle to get over this show. Now, you know, elephant in the room, the show is made by Vince Gilligan, who also made Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul. But to be real, if you're expecting anything like Breaking Bad, don't watch it. It is nothing like Breaking Bad. There are similar themes there, but this, as you've probably seen online, is more of a sci-fi. Breaking Bad, from what I remember, didn't have any sci-fi or like supernatural aspects to it. The Sopranos did, where there was a episode where there were ghosts for some reason, and it led to one of the main characters saying this when he thought he saw a ghost.
Kind spirit, is your name Sonny?
Fucking quiz!
Now, one of the most interesting things about Pluribus is there's no real antagonist in the show. I mean, there is, but not in the traditional sense. I mean, Vince has even said in articles that he purposely wanted to move away from like these kind of like gritty, hard-boiled characters, these evil bad guys, because he just found it like a bit fatiguing. And I don't think that's a cop-out. I think it's a really, really good idea because, you know, I mean, Vince made some amazing villains, like, for example, Tuco Salamanca, Gus Fring, and you could even argue Walter White. But then you see those characters kind of copy pasted in shows or films that are nowhere near as successful. And then you've also got this huge problem where you've got these actors that are incredibly successful, and then they just get typecasted into the same role over and over because they played such a good villain. It does get really fatiguing. Like when I saw Gus Fring in The Boys, he basically just gave the exact same kind of like stoic, I'm one step ahead of you kind of performance. Like, you know, Far Cry 3, you had Vaas, an amazing villain, and then they just copy pasted the same archetype into like so many other open world games. Like you had Rice in Dying Light. Dying Light is an amazing game, by the way. You did not play it for Rice. You did not care about Rice. Oh, he shot his own men. Oh, what a trope. I didn't see that coming. Now, at the minute, there have only been 2 episodes about Pluribus at the minute. So again, I really recommend you watch it because after this, I'm mostly going to talk about spoilers because I can't really go into detail about like the themes and how much I love the show without talking about certain character points. Now, in Pluribus, the main character is Carol. And you know how like in Breaking Bad, for example, you would have this kind of split between like you'd have Walt and Jesse be the main characters. And then it would stem from that, right? Like, for example, Walter, you'd see some little B story with Skylar, or with Jesse, you'd have some little B story with like his drug dealer friends, or later down the line when he was working with Gus's henchmen as well. And then Pluribus doesn't really do that. Carol is the only focus in the show, the character that Rhea Seehorn plays as. And I've never actually seen a show frame like this before because we never cut to any kind of, I mean, so far, because there's only 2 episodes out, we never cut to any kind of B story. This is solely Carol's story. story. That's why she's, all over the promotional material for the show. And the reason why Rhea Seehorn, the actress that played Carol, soy-faced when she saw herself on a billboard.
Okay. This doesn't get old. That's crazy!
Now, the first episode, you actually don't get introduced to Carol until like the first third, I'd say, because the beginning of the episode is trying to set up how the world became the way that it is. Because if you've read the synopsis online, it's basically saying Carol, the unhappiest person in the world, has to save the world from happiness. Because what's established in the first episode is scientists discover a genetic code that's in space. Like complete morons, they, don't even think, should we not try to recreate this? What if it wipes us all out or does something really bad? They end up recreating this genetic code. They end up testing it on animals. It becomes some kind of like sentient virus. One thing they've done in the show as well is purposely that they've tried to convolute the origins of the epidemic as much as possible. Because again, if it's like, oh, it was something in the water like cabin fever, or oh, it's a meteorite like A Quiet Place, or oh, it was made in a lab. I mean, the virus literally was made in a lab, but then it was first discovered in space. So if anything there, it feels very self-inflicted. And it's also trying to combine a lot of different themes of origins of a disease, because I've always found that really interesting in like, kind of horror films or like thrillers where there's like a contamination or an outbreak. Where does it come from? I mean, like, for example, the film Contagion that everyone watched during lockdown, the origin of the virus, everyone was wondering where it came from. And it didn't show you until the actual end of the film that it came from a zoonotic transfer between a bat eating a banana, the banana falls on the floor, and then the pig eats it. Because that's how most viruses are made. It's cross-contamination between two animals that should have not been interacting with each other. Now, one thing I do love, it shows like a timeline, and it also has this kind of like countdown of like, how many months, how many days, how many seconds. Obviously, you can tell if you're watching, this is going to be the moment where everything goes to shit. It does take a while to build up. The show can be slow at some points, but it always leads up to something. That there is no filler. There is no bit where we cut to Walt Jr. playing Minecraft on his iPad. So again, I think because the whole kind of like, invasion, extraterrestrial threat, or like a virus, it's so oversaturated. There is nothing Vince could have done to make something original. I mean, even with The Walking Dead, for example, like the wildfire virus, it was never explained where that came from. And then you had people like on Reddit and stuff like theorizing that it came from the water because, oh, if you watch episode 1 of season 1 of Fear the Walking Dead, there's a big focus on water. Like the dad's a plumber, he's fixing the water, he's drinking water. Like it was just cope. It was complete cope. There is no origin of an infection that you can do now that someone hasn't already done before. It's way too saturated. So I like the fact that it's been a mix of so many different things. So obviously we get introduced to Carol. She can definitely come across as very cynical, but her partner or wife or whatever, she's basically grounding her. So, she's functional. She can go to these book conferences because she's a very successful writer where she basically sits there like reading her own books in front of people. But then very, very quickly, this virus is released everywhere. So what happens in the show at one point, they actually, they're testing it on animals. They don't get anything. And then they actually find it in a rat. And then the rat bites this woman. I know it sounds very generic. She goes to like wash her hands and stuff. And then she kind of stops and then she starts convulsing. And then the lab technician actually drags her out. Keep in mind, by the way, where they're doing these experiments is like a BSL-4 contained environment. You know the ones you've seen where like they're in the big hazmat suits and they've got their own air supply because what they're dealing with is so dangerous. The fact that, she removed the glove to wash her hands and then also was dragged out by a colleague, you could chalk it up as a cope to like, the stress and panic and like he's never had to deal with this before. He's been taught how to deal with it, but he's never actually had to deal with it in person. So he's just looking out for a friend. That's like one of the weaker bits of the show, but it's really just to set up how much better everything gets. And one thing that I absolutely love about this show, there's not this bit where it's like, oh, you're going to be okay. And then she infects the colleague. We skip past that because we know that's going to happen. We know that this woman is basically going to be patient zero. So the way that they spread this contagion around initially is by kissing people because it's the fastest way to basically get the virus into their body because obviously, your saliva, you carry so many pathogens in there. So it does start to jump ahead pretty quickly. But one thing you notice is these infected people, they're unionized, right? They're acting like a hive mind. They're not like 28 days later infected where they're just going, just like going around biting people, just looking for the next person. They're incredibly organized, and you can tell that they haven't lost any kind of intelligence. If anything, it seems that they're getting more intelligent. And this is why in the show, they're able to infect the entire world, because they're not mindless infected that can be locked off like in the UK, like in 28 days later. I do like as well, a little side note about 28 days later. They were forced to make 28 weeks later, which wasn't involved with Alex Garland or Danny Boyle, the directors and the writers of the original. And at the end of that film, the rage virus spreads all over Europe. And then that's why when you watch 28 years later, there's that little text me like, it was driven back, because it's like, no, we're not messing with that film. That film was shit. But again, because they're so organized, this is how they're able to infect the entire planet so quickly. They're purposely contaminating things that people would use, like for example, licking like donut trays and stuff. You even see a scene of like multiple planes flying over, and it's very obvious they're dropping some kind of aerosol to infect, millions of people simultaneously, so no one actually has a chance to get away. And one thing we learn throughout the show is they are a hive mind, but they actually are a collective consciousness as well. So anyone that gets infected, even after they die, all of their memories and more importantly, everything they've learned throughout life is retained by every other person. This is why this is probably the most terrifying infection to be up against, because you're basically up against the mass intelligence of every single person on the planet. That's why, for example, you'll be able to have kids that can do open heart surgery, or you could have like a young woman learn to fly a cargo plane, even though it just doesn't make sense because they're using the intelligence of everyone else. Now, obviously, like I said, Carol is the main focus. She finds out pretty quickly that she's immune. They try to infect her and they fail. And it seems that because they can't infect her, they actually accept her, not as like, into the collective, but you're your own person. We just want to make you happy now. We just want to make sure you get everything you need. You want some Reddit gold? Go for it. You want Discord Nitro? We've got you. There is a very interesting scene where one person tries to kiss Carol to obviously infect her, and then they've never done it since, because obviously as soon as that person did it, it didn't work immediately. The collective have realized, okay, this is a problem now. We have to deal with this. Like, it's not like every 5 minutes there's someone running up to Carol and just just something like that, because they know it's pointless. Now, obviously, Carol, she's terrified about all these infected people that are speaking together, looking at her, and also she actually lost her partner as well, because her partner slapped her head on the concrete when the takeover was happening. Because when you're taken over and it's not directly, it's through an external means like an aerosol, you basically go through a change. Like when the woman was bit on the finger by the rat, she started having seizures. When the aerosol was dropped, people started having seizures. But then when you're kissed, it seems to be slightly different because it's a more direct transfer. Now, there's this amazing scene, and I think it builds up. It's going to build up the rest of the series, where Carol freaks out. She's traumatized that she's lost her partner. Her partner even smiles at her when she dies, and not in like kind of a, I love you, you're going to be okay, like kind of a menacing smile in a sense. And we can obviously tell from that she was infected and she died. She didn't survive the process, not because of the virus, but because she cracked her head on concrete. But now the hive mind know who Carol is. They know exactly what she likes because they're using her partner's knowledge against her. So she goes home, she's freaked out and stuff. And then she, tries to turn on the TV thinking that there's got to be like some emergency broadcast, some kind of like FEMA camp I can go to, some kind of help. And then there's a news channel and she's like, oh, thank God, it's the president or like some Congress hearing. But then it takes her a moment to realize that all the blurbs and the headlines, they're focused about her. They're saying, hey, Carol, can you give us a little call, please? And again, even this government person is speaking to her incredibly friendly, incredibly informally. It's like, Carol, we're your friend. We want what's best for you. You are your own person. And that's another scary thing as well. Like this virus obviously has some kind of intelligence because it's already had a contingency for this. And then she's shown like this graph of like, even the collective themselves not really understanding the true nature. They explain the origin and how it's like different kind of like waves, like cytosine and other things, which basically makes RNA. And if you didn't know, RNA is exactly what a virus is. And one of her first questions questions is basically, is there anyone else? Is there other people that aren't infected like me? And he goes, yeah, there's 12, but you're the only one in America. And half of them don't even speak any kind of English. The ones that do, it's actually their second language. And that also plays into the isolation as well. Like there's that glimmer of hope that there are more people that could be like her. But at the same time, they're at other sides of the planet. You know, how could she possibly reach them? But again, that's the irony of the show, because you've got this collective now that all they want to do is help Carol, because their end goal is to cure her as in she joins the collective. And she even says at one point, like, what if I say no? And they're like, you won't want to say no, don't worry. And this is where Vince has killed it, because he's made a villain that you possibly think, wait a minute, is it actually a villain? And I'm not talking about like an Alex Mercer prototype anti-hero, talking about the first game, by the way. I'm not talking about, you know, a bad guy that has good guy tendencies or, you know, vice versa. They seem inherently good. I mean, you know, because everyone's a collective now. There's no murder anymore. There's no robberies. No crimes are actually being committed at all. Everyone is living, you know, in peace and harmony. But obviously that doesn't come without its downsides as well, because they are incredibly hypocritical. They do say to Carol at one point, we can't kill. We can't even kill animals. We can't even kill snails. I mean, we might step on some bugs on accident, but we can't kill anything that we have the intent to kill. Anything accidental, like, you know, when we're walking around, sure. And that's pretty scary to think about as well. And I think that's going to be played later into the season, because they're basically saying we can't directly kill, but, you know, if it's like an accident a la Hitman Blood Money pushing someone down the stairs, I don't know, it wasn't me that killed you, it was the stairs. There's this great scene where Carol meets the other humans, because obviously how does she reach them? She has to talk to the collective. There's like a spokesperson that's assigned to her, and, you know, she reluctantly says like I hate you, you've ruined my life, you've took everything from me, but I need something here, so let me meet these people. And it is the most depressing scene in the film. Like this little glimmer of hope that you think Carol has met other people. It's not. They're not collective, but the problem is they've basically been brainwashed by the collective, mostly because these are people who still have family members surviving, and their family members were turned. And they're basically being convinced that, oh, this is like absolute bliss. I want to join them. Why would I not want to join them? Why would I want to, you know, kind of live on my own? It's basically the concept that if any of you watch The Matrix 1, there's a character called Cypher, and he does bring up this very interesting concept of, you know, would you rather be in the Matrix, like you're eating this beautiful steak, you know it's not real, but you're still eating it, or would you rather be just unplugged from the Matrix in an absolute hellscape completely on your own with no way out? Like, would you want to live in bliss, or would you want the awareness of that you're not in bliss? So you find out pretty quickly that Carol is quite a lost character. You know, her last tie to just not being a cynical crash out was from her partner who died. And then we actually find out a pretty big weakness of the collective as well, because Carol is so angry, she starts taking out her rage, you know, on infected people, not physically, but kind of just like screaming at them, like I hate you, you've ruined my life, you know, fuck you. And then what this does is it causes them to have tremors, not the single person, but the entire collective, because they cannot process, because like wherever this space, you know, Yatta, like whatever the genetic code for it was, wherever it's been sourced from, whatever, you know, planetary species possibly put it out there, it could not understand the concept of negative emotions at all. So it breaks the coding. So they basically all end up reenacting the initial infection phase, where they're all like convulsing and falling to their feet and having a stroke. And then it's revealed later that by Carol having these crash outs, she's indirectly killing millions and millions of people, like sometimes tens of millions of people. So then you think, wait, is Carol the bad person? But then obviously the collective are pretty hypocritical, because, you know, Carol has a crash out again and says, okay, so, you know, I've killed people accidentally, but how many people did you kill when you started this infection? How many people were converted when they were driving and they crashed their car, or they hit their head on the concrete, or, you know, fell into a Minecraft furnace or something like that? I think she basically admits it was like around 10% of the entire human population. And she's like, we didn't mean this, you know, like it was just part of the process. And you really do start to feel sorry for Carol, because she doesn't know what to do. She's met the last uninfected humans, and they all just seem like they want to join the collective. Now, I know I've been glazing this show into high heaven, and there's only 2 episodes out so far. They basically come out every Friday. I couldn't wait. I had to talk about this show and just soy all over it. I do feel, though, if you're watching this show to get like a big reveal of like where the virus came from or the origins, I don't think we're ever going to get that. I mean, Vince has literally gone on to say that it's a sci-fi show, but it's not the point. The point is there's a big thing that happens which basically sets up all of this character drama like other shows like The Leftovers. But the thing is, at the minute, Carol is the only human character left, the only one that's uninfected. And that's really interesting. It's not like there's a group of survivors and they're all banding together and maybe there's a bit of romance. No, she's completely on her own. Like the only point of contact is this, there's a woman that's set up to be like Carol's concierge, I guess, like her support if she needs anything. And they solely base this off a book that Carol wrote where there's like a main character, and the main character that's drawn was originally meant to be a woman. So they literally fly this woman out from like Egypt or something, get her to wear like makeup and a wig and stuff to look like this original character using Carol's partner's memories because her consciousness got uploaded before she died. That is incredibly malicious. I mean, Carol calls them out and it's like, how could you do this? Like, this is so wrong. And you know, she basically says, you know, we're sorry if you're not happy with this. But again, like if you read between the lines, the collective are incredibly manipulative. It's very obvious that they've broke everyone else down, mostly because they had an easy way in with family members that are infected. They're ready to be converted, but they just can't get Carol. They can't. And I reckon they want to get rid of her, but they can't because whatever's in their coding or their RNA, it doesn't physically allow them to do it. They're not going to sabotage her or anything like that. They only want to help her, but they're unsure what to do here. I mean, I think Carol so far in the show has crashed out like on 2 separate occasions, killing again millions of people that probably, you know, were doing work like construction work or in a dangerous position when their body kind of started to shut down. But even after that, they still can't actually do anything to stop her. I mean, I can't imagine Carol's gonna win by basically, you know, crashing out 30,000 times a day to the point that she's the last woman left alive. I don't really see that happening. Now, one thing I do love about the show is it's not something you're going to watch once. It's created by Vince Gilligan, the creator of Breaking Bad. So there are going to be so many like little Easter eggs or references. You know, I'm not saying like we're all going to look for like a Walter White cameo or something, but there's so many things if you read between the lines, like even, for example, the name of the show, Pluribus. I mean, if you look at the logo itself, you can see that the I is stylized as a 1. Carol is the only one left. And Pluribus is probably based off the Latin motto, E pluribus unum, which means out of many, one. Carol is the only one. And E pluribus unum as well is actually the unofficial motto of the US. And again, Carol is the only uninfected person that we know of left in the US. I mean, I even just saw this theory on Reddit here. Like, for example, Mark 336. This is like an opening with the infection. And it basically says, whoever does God's will is my brother and sister and mother. And obviously, as we know, the way the infection works, it's a collective. Everyone becomes everyone else's brother, everyone else's sister, and everyone else's mother. Now, I'm not really sure where the show is actually going to go next. Episode 2, that's the latest episode out so far. You can see Carol get on a plane. I think she's kind of thought to herself, fuck it, you know, I'm not going to join them, but, you know, I want to kind of live a little, you know, into like a bit of hedonism, because, you know, what's the point if I'm fucked either way, if I go back to my house on my own that I live with my dead partner, or I could just go out and forget everything and then just kind of cope. I think one of my favorite things about the show as well is it is going to hook Breaking Bad fans in, even though it isn't Breaking Bad, because again, the entire show, well, most of the show primarily is shot in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which again is where the Meth Man show was. Now, I want to admit, I did glaze Pluribus this entire video, but there is one huge glaring flaw I have with it, with the show itself. It's stole from Utopia. Okay, look, man, look, let a guy cope, okay? So the yellow color palette, in the marketing, I wonder where he got that from. The fact that everyone is trying to create a utopia and there's someone trying to stop it, Notice how there was a whole group of people in Utopia that were trying to, you know, stop the network. Again, a network of people. Bravo, Vince, because they all network together, right? Vince Gilligan be like, I watched Utopia, and then, they've got a group of people. Okay, let's just have one person that's trying to stop a utopia from happening. You're a thief, you're a plagiarist, and I'm going to sue you on behalf of Channel 4.